Hi, and welcome to Board with Life News for January 20th. Today I'm going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons returning to Ravenloft, the new games Nitwit, IMHOTEP, and Castles of Burgundy the card game, as well as the Kickstarter for the Burning Wheel Codex. Let's get to it. Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. We've got some exciting news for fans of the podcast. We will be returning to releasing episodes next week by continuing our Ravenloft campaign that we started back in October and then had to take a break from because Nikki and Donald had a baby. So we'll be finishing out that storyline for the next couple weeks, and then we'll be going back to the Adventures in the New World ongoing campaign that we did last year. So that's very exciting. I'm very happy to be back to playing, and yeah, so that'll be coming out next week. Sticking with Ravenloft news, Dungeons & Dragons said that they will be releasing a new storyline this March that is going to be Curse of Strahd. So they're actually going to be doing a 5th edition version of the classic Castle Ravenloft storyline and Ravenloft world and all that kind of stuff, and Barovia and everything around it. This is very exciting to me. I love Gothic horror, and this is the Gothic horror module of Dungeons & Dragons. I think they're setting everything kind of in the Forgotten Realms, so I think Barovia will now be sort of a part of the Forgotten Realms. They say that there are paths into the storyline from Forgotten Realms, if you're currently doing a Forgotten Realms campaign, or from your homebrew games, so you can just weave them in seamlessly. You'll be able to take your characters from level 1 to 10 in this storyline, which is pretty cool. It also has, I think you can jump in at level 4, because I think it's like a side quest in Barovia that levels you 1 to 3, so you can make new characters or use your other ones. One of the really cool things about this is they brought Tracy and Laura Hickman back as consultants on it. They were the original authors of Ravenloft in 1983, but they haven't worked on Ravenloft since 1986, so it's really cool to see 5th edition kind of going back to the roots of Dungeons & Dragons and making sure that it's staying true to the original creators' visions and stuff like that, while also updating it for 5th edition. Very cool. It's coming out March 15th, and it's going to cost $50, so I'm definitely going to be buying it day one. I hope you will too. Actually, I don't hope you will too. I don't care if you do or not, but if it sounds cool to you, then definitely buy it. Anyways, moving on. Z-Man Games announced that they'll be releasing the game Nitwit this March. It's a party game for 2 to 8 players. Normally, this wouldn't be that big of news that Z-Man Games is releasing a party game, but Matt Leacock, the designer of Pandemic, designed it, so obviously he's a very, very popular designer these days, so that kind of pushes it up the news charts. There's not a ton of info on how this game is played. It says that you can, quote, craft your own word categories using loops and spools. I don't know what that means. It seems like there might be a physical component where you're actually looping around words and stuff with string or something. The components look really, really nice. The design choices are really, really cool. But I have no idea if it's any good or not. We'll have to wait and see if it kind of can follow in Vlaada Chvátil's success with Codenames in the hobby market or not. We'll see. Cosmos announced IMHOTEP is coming out by Phil Walker Harding. This is a game for 2 to 4 players where you embody the role of builders in Egypt trying to emulate the best-known architecture. So it seems like they're little boats and you have stones and you have to kind of move them in a certain order and then stack them up in a certain way. Not a ton of gameplay information here, but it's by Phil Walker Harding, who I love. He designed Cacao, Sushi Go, and he kind of really excels at the light Euro game. So this seems like it's absolutely in that wheelhouse, so I'm definitely interested in checking it out because I really like his work. And speaking of designers that I love, Castles of Burgundy, the card game, now has a release date. This is by Stefan Feld, probably my favorite designer. It's for 2 to 4 players, and it is a card game version of the very popular Castles of Burgundy, one of my all-time favorite games, so I'm ecstatic about this. So it's going to take about 20 to 45 minutes. There's not a ton of info, again, on kind of the play of the game, but the graphic design and art looks very similar to Castles of Burgundy, so I'm hoping that it's just kind of like a faster, smaller version of Castles of Burgundy that will give me the same sort of feeling, but I can play it as a filler game instead of kind of a main event game. I talked about this over a year ago on the news when the first photos came out of him testing it, so I am absolutely ecstatic about this. The Kickstarter for this week is the Burning Wheel Codex. This is a companion book to The Burning Wheel, which is one of the most popular indie RPGs to come out in the past decade or so. It's going to include new life paths, new magic, and rules commentary. Burning Wheel had some popular spin-offs, Mouseguard, and Torchbearer. But the Burning Wheel book, is one of the nicest kind of role-playing game things I have. It has really gorgeous kind of gold inlay on it. It's just very well produced, and it looks like the codex is going to be the same type of quality. The book, the Codex book, is $25 right now on Kickstarter, and if you don't have Burning Wheel, I highly recommend it. You can get the core book and the Codex book for $50 right now on Kickstarter. That's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube, especially considering we have the podcast coming up next week. You definitely want to be on the front end of that, and the series will premiere next month, which is very exciting, and you definitely want to be the first person on Earth to see it, because we've been working so hard on it for 2 years. You definitely have to be the first person, because otherwise you're nothing. All right, so at Netters Plays asks this week via Twitter, they say, how did you get into the hobby? I always played games growing up, but kind of the normal stuff, Monopoly. I liked Risk a lot. I played a lot of backgammon, a lot of gin rummy, stuff like that. But I always wanted to kind of play Magic and Dungeons & Dragons, but I never really felt cool enough to, as nerdy as that is. Like, that was like a group of people, and I never was able to infiltrate that until I was an adult. But when I was like 18 maybe, I went to an anime convention, and there was a vendor there selling board games, and I got a couple of hobby games, including Fury of Dracula 2nd Edition, stuff like that. And through that, I found out about BoardGameGeek.com, and that kind of blew open my world. There were all of these board games that I had no idea existed. So I started collecting then, but really got into it more when I met Donald through a film shoot, and it turned out he was into board games as well. So we started playing each other's games and learning about all this stuff, and then it really exploded when we decided to make Board with Life, and it's been quite a fast ride since then, in kind of getting super deep into the hobby to the point where, you know, I know designers and I have news segments and that kind of stuff, which I think is more than I ever would without Board with Life. But I'm happy about it. All right, thanks for tuning in this week, and I'll see you next week.